A small story from my last job. Prior to my current position, I worked at an MSP. One of the companies we supported used some credit card processing software that would occasionally experience an issue. It couldn't work due to a port not being available. Now, we had a documented fix that was fairly quick and simple to implement, so downtime for that issue was fairly low. It was frustrating for both our client and their customers while it was happening, though, and it was only a band-aid fix. We were fairly busy when I first started, so didn't really have time to try and solve the root problem. Then COVID hit. We lost some clients, but not the one in question, and most of our clients let some employees go, so we had less tickets. That also meant we had more time, so when this happened again and it was already a slow day, I got to investigating and called the company that made the credit card processing software. Turns out they had hard-coded a port number into their software. That port number was in the 49152 to 65535 range. When I realized this, I facepalmed a little. There was the root cause of the problem and why it was as intermittent as it was. So I found a way to prevent Windows Server from handing that port out, ran it by our resident server bro, and then implemented it. As far as I know, the company didn't experience that problem ever again. Welcome back, guys. Today we're doing Tales from Tech Support, where we get to have a little chuckle at the technologically disadvantaged. Like me. I'm Uncle Reddit. And if I got a story for you, it's funny, somebody commented in real life the other day after watching one of my videos. I wear suspenders, sometimes a t-shirt, sometimes a cut-off sleeve. A lot of times in cooler weather, I'll wear a flannel shirt. They call me the red green of tech support. I'll take that. If the ladies don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy, right? Grab that printer port. Back in the days, I was a networking supervisor for the UK offices of a South Korean shipping company, now since gone bankrupt. The head office decided it was time to move the company onto a modern network-capable version of the COBOL mainframe batch system they used for shipping-related documentation. It was to be an all-singing and dancing system that installed updates to the users' PCs as they started up the software each day. As software loaded, it would check a location to see if any new updates were available. It would then download and install these updates before starting. This system was meant to be fully network aware, so you could sign into the program from any office and print invoices, reports, bills of lading, etc. to your local office printers. Various printers were assigned to print queues dedicated to each print function with the correct paper installed. Imagine our surprise when we went to print one function, can't remember what it was after this long, and the system gave an error about the printer not being available. Print queues there. Printers ready and online. Why can't we print? After some investigation, we find out the developer for that particular function back in South Korea tested their software output by printing to the printer plugged into his local printer port. I think it was LPT1 on his PC. Everything works, so he hard-coded the software to only print to that printer port. Too much trouble to rewrite the software, so from now on we had to run a batch command on each PC starting up to capture LPT1 and assign it to the print queue for that function so the printer could receive the output as intended. So there we had a fully network-capable system that would only print to a printer connected to your PC. It seems like a lot of these companies have one developer that sort of finalizes everything, but there really should be somebody looking over his shoulder and double-checking things too. Hey, did you set that back to, variable port, whatever? That doesn't work, does it? No, you don't need admin permissions for that. In my company, we have a team that IT and systems hate. They're so entitled. All MBAs from top universities who look to the rest of the office as beneath them. They have the best cutting-edge hardware that any pro gamer would be envious of, and they still complain that the machines are too slow. Hint, might have something to do with the 20 Excel files you have open on top of the Bloomberg app, plus the crappy macros you wrote that have no memory management. What's that? You don't know what memory management is? You don't say. They always want any new software they can get their hands on, which needs to be approved by the larger company we belong to, and go through the proper onboarding security process, even though they barely know how to use it, because someone read that it might do something they could use at some point, and they want it yesterday. We have company-wide security policies that apply to everyone, yet they have to have exemptions because they can't do their work like this, and upper management lets them get away with it because they make the company a lot of money. Although luckily, Business Daddy is zeroing down on that and slowly kicking them off their golden pedestal. In any case, for a reason that doesn't deserve explaining, they're moving databases. So they needed a sandbox place where they could do their development. When I set them up in a test server I managed personally, I told them that security policies dictated by higher powers explicitly state that I was not to give them admin rights to their database, and that there was no possible reason why they would need it. My bosses would have just given up and let them run wild on the server, but I'm more stubborn and headstrong, much to their chagrin. I just gave them all the read, write, DDL permissions so they can do and undo anything they want within their own pigsty without it contaminating the other databases we have there. Fast forward a couple months, and after a few bumps, they're now wanting to move the tables from their old database to the new one on the sandbox. Side note, for some contract reasons, we cannot just take a backup of the old one and load it into the new server, so it really has to be a table-by-table transfer. The problem is that once they move their tables, they need to add primary keys to them, and for that, they now need admin rights. My bullshit meter starts beeping. I go back on their email and remind them that we can't give them admin rights. I want to add especially for such a ridiculous reason, but I save it for myself. And that any script they need to run that requires higher permissions, they can send it to me and I'll review it and run it. They don't like that. There's a back and forth on the emails. Yes, no, yes, nah, yes, nuh-uh. But we have our weekly meeting scheduled for that day, so anything they want to tell me, they can say it to my virtual face. Along comes the meeting, and they start by saying it's non-negotiable. They need the rights because it's a lot of tables they need to migrate, and they're too busy and don't have the time to go through each table with me, and they'd rather do it themselves. I'm confused because they'll need to script every table as a create command, so why not include the keys then and there? But apparently someone else will automate that scripting, so they don't need to worry about that. Besides, they're too busy to go through the automation process and change the script to include the keys. I still don't understand their logic or how they'll be automating the scripting, but I still won't give them the permissions. Any key they want to include after the tables are built can be sent over to me and I'll run the script. But no, they don't have the time to go through every table with me. They're too busy to schedule a meeting and sit down with me to get the keys added. I'm doubly confused now. Who's talking about a meeting? Just send the code you need to run. Well, unstoppable force meets unmovable object and they just get frustrated. They literally say, let's move on because we're getting nowhere with this, and I don't plan to discuss this for 40 minutes while we get nothing done. My blood boils and I just say, fine, I just don't understand why you can't script whatever you need to change and send it to me. You say you're too busy to go through every single table, but you'd still need to know which columns need to be set to a primary key for each table. If you don't know that, I don't see how you'll be able to add them, admin rights or not. It's worth pointing out that my boss and boss's boss have been quiet all this time, and it's just me and them bashing it out. Well, after my snarky reply, my boss jumps in and tries to defuse the situation. Okay, maybe if we set up another meeting you can explain to us what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll see how we can help you. Wow, this guy sounds like a limp rag. The main guy is already sharing his screen and shows us in the Object Explorer in SSMS, expand databases. Expand database _name, expand tables, expand table _name. Right click keys, click on new foreign key. Warning message pops out saying they need permissions to do that action. We need to go through hundreds of tables and do this. You want to volunteer your time just because you don't want to give us admin rights? Fine, go ahead. Well, Tales from Tech Support, here's where my jaw drops. Mr. Better Than You, top university MBA genius that is too busy to go through every single one of the tables with me is actually planning on going through each and every single one of his database tables, expand, right-click, and add a primary key in the most inefficient way possible. I'm just bewildered and simply say, you do know that what you've just done can be scripted, right? What? That whole action of selecting a table, adding a column to be a primary key, all that can be scripted. I just typed the command in the meeting chat. Alter table, table _name, add constraint, key _name, primary key clustered, column _name. Suddenly his angry tone shifts in a second faster than a bipolar Karen off her meds. Oh, okay, fine, let's do it like that. What a doofus. Oh my god. A lot of people with MBAs, PhDs, doctorates, whatever, masters, they are great in their fields, in their specialized fields. But you let them loose anywhere else and they're going to muck it up. I've had customers in the past with doing construction and things who, on the side as their hobby, would fix things around the house. You know, fix their screen door, install something, build something, whatever. We had one customer, he was a doctor, pediatrician as a matter of fact, and he laid his own tile floor and he did a beautiful job. Now this guy actually put attention to detail in, did everything right, prepped it right, you know, so that later on down the road, the floor wouldn't flex and crack it, you know, crack all the grout out of the joints and everything. He did a beautiful job. But most people that do that, I'd rather feed crack to a squirrel and let him loose on my tools. Remote support. One day I received a ticket from one of our users asking for some support. What it was for exactly, I can't remember anymore, but it was something very simple. I called him, and instead of trying to explain what he had to do and losing 30 minutes of valuable time, I decided to do the change myself. 2 minutes of work. I asked for his TeamViewer ID and password so I could have a look. He asked where he could find this because he didn't seem to find it. I explained it as simple as I could where to find it. His response was that his screen was black because his computer actually was turned off. His next remark was, "So my computer has to be enabled in order for you to make the change?" After the call, I was genuinely choking the life out of the earphone. I'm not sure I read that right. So the guy wants changes made on his local system and doesn't realize it has to be on for somebody to make the change for him? Man, people are some kind of special. It's almost never a projector bulb issue. Just like it's never lupus on House MD. In AV support, it's never a projector bulb issue. I'm the coordinator of the Audiovisual Services Department for a small private college. There have been at least 4 times in the past few months that a professor has submitted a ticket about what they think is a bulb issue that has turned out to be something else entirely. Once it was just that the VGA cable wasn't plugged all the way into their display adapter. Another time the projector was overheating and just had to clean out the air filter and let it rest for a few hours. And the other 2 times it was an issue I couldn't recreate that may or may not have been user error, but definitely wasn't anything wrong with the bulb. Oddly enough, the one time it actually was a bulb issue, the bulb actually exploded during a class, and smoke was apparently coming out of the projector. That was a fun one to take care of. Agreed, it's almost never a bulb lamp issue. I got yelled at by a AV guy once when I was running soundboard and audiovisual stuff for a church that, yeah, they're not bulbs, they're lamps. Anyway, yeah, we had some lamp issues for a while, off and on. And part of it was a housekeeping issue. I was supposed to be taking care of things, maintaining, cleaning the dust out. We had a rack system with, our condensers, our EQs, things like that. And, blow the dust out of them, cable management, things like that. And as I say cable management, I'm sitting here looking at a rat's nest across my desk that would make most tech guys cry. But anyway, the one thing was the filter in the projector that hung from the ceiling in this massive room that I couldn't even get to. And I said, listen, once a quarter, we have fluorescent lights and can lights all throughout the ceiling that need to be addressed every so often with, burnout bulbs, lamps, clean out the filter in the projector, make sure all the connections are tight, make sure there's no, rats chewing on the wires above the ceiling tiles, things like that. And I said, so once a quarter, we need to rent a lift. We called them Genie lifts, but there's different brands. But yeah, you need a lift so that you can get up there, take care of the thing, drop down, roll it somewhere else, go up. Their solution was a friend of a friend had a ladder that would reach. Now, I've seen some of these A-frame ladders before, and let me tell you, I don't trust 99% of the fiberglass ones. This one was an old wooden one. Like, it had to be 40 years old, covered in paint, looked like it'd been sitting in a guy's backyard for 30 years. There's no way in hell I'm getting up there to clean anything on that ladder. I said, OSHA rules still do apply here. So I said, you get me a lift. I have the harness and the leash that clips onto the lift basket and everything like that. Hard hat if I need to wear it, which I didn't bother there, but at least I could be connected to the machine so I wouldn't fall over the rail and splat my fat butt in the middle of the sanctuary. They just kept blaming the bulb, cheap bulbs, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, as often as we use this thing, which wasn't that often, we could have made it last at least 2 or 3 years with regular cleaning of the filters. And like I said, there was other things that needed to be done in the ceiling anyway. Can't reason with some people. Give the user full admin permissions. While working for an MSP, one of our clients installed a new accounting suite onto their servers that required a specific path, a permission set for the application to work from the user's machine. Initial testing worked well, and the head of finance could work without issues, so we decided to roll out the software to the rest of the team. The vendor created the accounts and did a basic connection test to see if the application was loading, which it did. Next day, I'm handed a ticket stating they can connect to the system, but they can't pull reports. Checking all the settings the vendor sent us, and they all match, compared to the manager's permissions that we know is working, and they all match. Cool, must be a vendor side issue, so I'll send an email to their support and get them to just have a look. Nope, nothing wrong with the software, must be a local server issue. Hasn't even looked at the issue on the server, just outright tells me their software is working correctly. Could it be a bad permissions or incorrect grouping or something like that? We all miss these things from time to time. Nope, software is working fine. Give the user more permissions on the server. This went back and forth for like 3 days. Managed to get a workaround by giving some users a RDP connection to the server so they can work from the actual server on the support account. Cringe. before I lost all patience and told them I would fix their software as they don't seem to be able to. Borrowed the manager's login details as he had some back-end access I couldn't get with the support account and started digging. Found a section where they had created a group for access to the reports that should have been linked to the initial group created for the users but had basically been left floating on the back end doing nothing. Manager wasn't even aware that this was a thing they could do, as the vendor told them to call them whenever a new user needed access. Linked the groups and everything started working like it was meant to. The vendor then tried to get our access banned from their server because we were fiddling with vendor-only settings. The CEO of our client company ripped into them, threatening them with a suit for each breach of contract. Sometimes I love my job. It's amazing how people will set things up wrong and then blame you. Don't even look into the issue to make sure, because, like you said, sometimes we miss stuff. I mean, look at me. My little monkey brain adds and omits letters out of words all the time when I'm narrating these stories. I know what it says. I know what it's supposed to say, most of the time. And I'll read things. The other day I was reading a story about a guy getting sacked, and I thought he said smacked. Yeah, I got upset. Yeah, somebody threatened to have me smacked. Yeah, I might not survive, but I'm going to take a few out with me. Yeah, he was talking about being fired. But, feeble. Hey guys, if you want to keep the fun going, click on this video here on the screen. I think you're going to enjoy it. See ya.